Hello and welcome to the third edition of Meet the Metapreneur. This week we have with us Kelly Lovell. She's the founder of Bridging the Gap Ventures, and she is joining us from Canada. Hello, Kelly, and welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me today.
No, absolutely. And I'd like to ask you a very simple opening question. Please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us what you are up to.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly, and my passion is bridging opportunity gaps for the next generation. I spent the last decade in creating future skills education and youth-led innovation programs that help young emerging talent prepare for the future of work and create a better world in the process. I specialize over the last 5 years on the role of young people in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals through these upskill and innovation programs. And really the core of what I'm trying to do is reduce inequalities so these bright young minds that are left out of education and innovation can build a better world. And in the process, it's brought me down a lot of exciting pathways that have introduced me to spaces like the Metaverse. And one of the main pathways that brought me here was our marquee signature initiative at Bridging the Gap, which is Younga. Younga was founded in 2020 in response to the UN 75th anniversary and a call to create the most inclusive, future forward platform for people to build solutions for the SDGs, and seeing that we can't have a future forward inclusive solution if we're not engaging the nearly 2 billion young bright minds in this world who will be leading a lot of these sectors over the next decade. And so back in 2020, before Metaverse was even really trending or a thing, we built a galactic Metaverse in space, took Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide around the world in this immersive VR experience that educated young people on the UN SDGs and brought youth delegates from 158 countries to meet with world leaders and co-create solutions in these innovation sectors. So fast forward now on our third year, we've reached about 330 million young people worldwide through various collaborations with influencers and talent. And I'm excited to just grow from there. It's a fast moving, evolving space. And it's the creativity and imagination that we can infuse into these sectors. It's a very exciting time.
So that's amazing, Kelly. I've been following your work on LinkedIn, especially, and I see you're very active and you are an influencer, for the young women out there who are getting onto the metaverse. So my next question to you is, do you find that the metaverse is inclusive in the sense, is it an equal opportunity for women to be in the metaverse, to set up their business, to set up their communities? So what are you hearing from other women in your community?
Yes. So interesting enough, over the last, consistently for the last 2 years, more than nearly 70% of our youth delegates have been women. And that isn't like an intentional thing. It just happens that it has been that way, where I see this wave of emerging young women who are trying to take ownership of their success, really wanting to contribute and participate in these opportunities. But in my experience, there is definitely a need for more inclusive metaverse and just opportunity and innovation, which is concerning and a discrepancy when you actually look at the economic power that young women and women as a whole have. They control 85% of consumer spending, yet receive 2% of venture capital, and we're the second largest economic power in the world. So from a position of even just a consumer growth, engaging women in the metaverse and crypto and Web3 in these opportunities is essential for the growth and health of these industries. And unfortunately, we don't see that quite yet. It's intimidating for a lot of women because I think immediately, because they're tech driven, there's this misconception sometimes that you need to be an engineer or know a lot of tech skills to participate in the industry. And I'm a non-tech founder. I'm not an engineer, but I learned the space by being in it. And that's what we really try and do at Bridging the Gap is create digital experiences and events that introduce emerging talent to these sectors in a way where it sparks their curiosity and imagination and kind of demystifies some of these barriers and misconceptions of even what does an entrepreneur look like? Who can be successful? Like getting away from this image of this young guy in a hoodie in his garage. That's not the era we're in anymore. And so I think it has to do with a lot of education and introducing and kind of demystifying some of those stereotypes that we're seeing.
Yeah, actually, I totally second you on that because, you know that I run this platform called onlywebinars.com. And we are now hosting a lot of webinars which are Metaverse centric. And I'm finding a lot of participation from women. Even on our panels, if you see, it's more than 50% are women. They are entrepreneurs, they are running successful businesses. And even in our audience, in the last webinar, I did a quick analysis. We had more than 1,000 people register from 70 plus countries. And I would say almost 40% of them were women. So I think it's all about education. It is all about involving people in what we are trying to achieve. So yeah, I mean, the good news is that every day when I'm doing my Zoom meetings, right, in the NFT space, in the Web3 space, more and more women are participating. So I think the signs are all good, and Metaverse is, I'm sure, going to be an equal opportunity player for all concerned. And one more question. I mean, I was reading your profile on LinkedIn, and there I saw that you are the Canadian ambassador of One Young World. So can you tell us a little bit about that role that you play?
Yes, of course. So I've been part of One Young World now for, gosh, I guess it has been a decade this year. So 2012 was my first introduction. It was my first global youth conference that I went to when I was like really baby Kelly. And it's one of those things that it opened my eyes up to the need for intersectional experiences because as a young person being introduced to this global community where I can meet peers from different parts of the world and look at a solution like climate change and see a perspective from a colleague from Maldives in a small island state to someone from South America to where I was up north and see their different perspectives of how climate change was affecting them. And then also kind of that meeting of minds is where the magic happens. And so that's, I think, inspired a lot of what we do now at Bridging the Gap of how we do our intergenerational and intersectional programming, which are just fancy words to just saying people from different walks of life and different career pathways and sectors that come together. So you can mix someone from media to tech and private sector and government and so on, because when you do this magic happens where you have a more holistic perspective on the challenge you're trying to solve. And I think if we do that more, we can truly accelerate a lot of the ambitions and goals that humanity is collectively striving for, including a lot of the global challenges we're trying to solve. We just really can't lead change in isolation. And the more we break down these barriers and these silos and bring people together and create these more diverse, inclusive spaces, we can truly move things forward. And the metaverse does that in very literal ways of breaking down national borders and physical barriers, as well as it does create inclusive opportunities for those who learn about it and understand it, because you don't need to have predetermined skills necessarily to jump in and learn about it. And if you have access to technology, you can connect with the community. So I think it's more about bringing visibility to, as you said, a lot of these emerging talent that are in the space, they're just not getting their voice elevated in the same way. And so if we bring that elevation, we can learn that it's a lot more inclusive than our images. And then from there, we can bring more talent in.
Oh, that's great. I want to commend you, Kelly, for having so many achievements at this young age. And I think you are a role model for all the aspiring entrepreneurs out there. And before I let you go, one final question. Can you share some tips that you would like to give to entrepreneurs who are just getting into the metaverse?
I would say be curious. Learn as much as you can. So I like to think of, whenever I'm entering a new space, think of yourself as like a sponge and just soak up all the different informational sources. Not every source may be 100% correct, but you will find your own truth, and you will be your best judge by finding different perspectives. And I actually encourage you to listen to perspectives that may be diverse or in direct opposition to your view of the space, because even if you don't agree with those perspectives, they're going to give you a more well-rounded view of the space you're entering in, and then you can choose which pathways you want to choose. But at this point, just be a sponge, soak it up, meet people, go to webinars like yours, and connect in with the circle, because whenever there's an emerging space, it ends up that the circles are much smaller than you think. And so the more you just put yourself out there, the more connected you get in, you'll find that people will start introducing you to different opportunities and resources, and you can really find your way that way. And yeah, and then otherwise, if you're interested in getting more involved, I also encourage you to connect with us in Bridging the Gap. We're specifically focused on building pathways to help introduce talent to the space and create opportunities for innovation. So you can go to wearebridgingthegap.com, check out some of the cool opportunities we have coming up with Impact NFTs, our big forum, Younga, this year. One of our themes for 2022 is around the Metaverse. So we're going to be doing some pretty cool things around the Metaverse globally with emerging young leaders. And we're also going to be doing a takeover at Bitcoin 2022 coming up in April. So if you're going to find yourself in Miami, look us up, and we have a pretty cool experience planned there.
So that's great. Thank you, Kelly, for sharing all that information and knowledge with our audience. I'm sure they'll find it useful. I will stay connected with you. And finally, I want to tell my audience to follow Kelly on social media. There's a lot to be learned from her. And thank you, Kelly, once again. See you on the other side. And bye for now.
Thank you so much.